The governing party has been rocked by infighting, scandal and corruption. There's also been widespread condemnation of a lack of service delivery in the country.
In fact, a recent Ipsos poll found the ANC would garner far less than 50% of the votes. But the Inclusive Society Institute disagrees. It argues the party will manage to hold on to power, or at the very least be led, or rather be the lead player in a coalition government. Let's get more now from the Institute's Daryl Swanepoel. A very good morning to you, Daryl. Thank you so much for joining us. So why do you disagree with the Ipsos poll? Because I think a lot of South Africans, I know it really is just a very small representation on social media. You'll have South Africans saying that come 2024, we need to get the ruling party out of power. And yet you guys are saying that at the very least, what's going to happen is that they will be leading the coalition government. Why this belief?
Well, first of all, good morning to you and to Faith and to the viewers. First of all, I do not disagree with the Ipsos poll. I believe the Ipsos poll is correct, but it's not being interpreted correctly. The Ipsos poll does not say that 42% of the respondents will be voting for that the ANC will get 42%. If you look at the poll, that 42% that is referred to is out of all the respondents. But 14% of the respondents had indicated that they would not vote or they were not registered to vote. Therefore, the 42% cannot be taken at face value. You need to take the 42% and work a percentage out of the 86% of those people that can actually vote. So the people that will pitch up on voting day is 86% of the 100. That means that the ANC will automatically notch up to about around 49%. The DA also increases to about 13%. But then that is not the end of the story either. What then one has to look at, amongst the 86%, there's something like 12% of the respondents that indicated that they did not know which party to vote for, or they refused to say which party they would vote for. Therefore, one needs to do an allocation, and that allocation is also not a simple allocation, in that you cannot just proportion it, because history tells us, or the trends tell us, that the ruling party voters have stayed away from the polls at a higher level than the opposition political parties. So the bottom line is that one does the adjustment for those people that cannot vote, or for those people that you do not know who they're going to vote for. We find that the ANC gets around just under 51%, 50.76% to be precise. The DA goes up to around 18%. The EFF goes around up to around 13%. So that shows us that the ANC is actually in a much stronger position, while all the political parties, in fact, are in a much stronger position than the 42% that has been reported as the Ipsos outcome.
Daryl, I still want us to be able to go into voter sentiment among South Africans. You're saying that South Africans, many of them are still saying that we will not be voting, and the others are saying that, they do not know which exactly political party will represent their best interest. How much of civil society is still very much paying homage or loyal to the African National Congress, because it's still perceived and still seen, and it is the liberation movement, right? So how much of that does it play a role where South Africans say, these are the guys that made sure that I can walk on the pavement, whereas my grandfather was not allowed to just because of the color of his skin, or I can go to the same school as a white child because I was not allowed to, my parents were not allowed to under an apartheid government. So how much do we still have to take into consideration that we're only 28 years into this democracy, and the ones that experience segregation are still very much alive?
Well, look, that sentiment is still strong and it counts, but we must also say that trust in political parties has diminished quite considerably. And if you even look at this Ipsos poll, the number of people that have said that they will not be voting is high. Let me just quickly look. 10% of respondents said that they would not vote. Which is a high figure, and that shows that there is a bit of despondency starting to kick in, and there is a little that the parties will have to stop relying on sentiment of the past, and will have to start relying on performance in government and the policies that are putting forward to the electorate. I just want to say there's one more adjustment that we need to just make, and that is that to your point, Faith, that there is despondency. We have found that the voter turnout has diminished. In 2009, there was about 77% voter turnout. This dropped to 73% in 2014, and in 2019, it dropped to a mere 66%. And precisely what you're saying, that disillusionment and that doubting and that mistrust, we believe will continue to feed into the political process, and one cannot rely on a high voter turnout. In fact, we believe one should expect around 60% turnout. And if one does the adjustment for that 60% turnout, then we believe that pushes the ANC a little bit down from the 51% to around 48%. So I think all things being equal, we could expect the ANC to receive somewhere between 48 and 51% in an election. But let me just make it very clear, that is if an election will be held tomorrow. The election is 2 years away. There's a lot that can happen in 2 years.
Daryl, who do these surveys target? Do they go into the rural areas? Because we are finding that a number of people that are still very much in support of the ANC, that still hold, that belief that Faith was speaking of, some of them sit in the rural areas. Yes, some of them are destitute. They are experiencing, I mean, we have a story right now from the Eastern Cape with our reporter Nleban Tlanganiso speaking of learners that are being taught in a bus by 2 teachers because they don't have classrooms. But those people, their parents, those children's parents and their grandparents still believe that the ANC is the party that can take them out of that position of destitution. So do these surveys speak to those people, or do they just stay in the urban areas, and then we are running with this belief that the ANC might lose power off of the questions and answers that we are getting from people that are in urban areas?
That's a very important point you're making, because many polls actually do not have a national spread, and they just target the urban areas. This Ipsos poll is one of the largest, if not the largest, poll that takes place looking at political trends, and it has sampling from across all 9 provinces, and it also has sampling from within the urban and the rural areas. So it's very, very representative of the country as a whole. We believe that this reflects the sentiment of the country as a whole.